Kia ora. This Sunday we celebrate and remember Matariki. It coincides, of course, with winter solstice, which is the seasonal beginning for the new year for both European and Māori cultures. Matariki is about stars, the Pleiades actually, 7 sisters, goddesses, stars who are among the nearest to Earth. The name Pleiades comes, of course, from ancient Greece, and it's this time of year that marked the start of the sailing season. The poet, Hesiod, advised mariners to stay on land when the Pleiades disappeared from view and their guidance was lost. In Māori culture, Matariki is a time to firstly remember, as the old prayer book used to say, those who have helped and influenced us, our dead, our stars. It could be a parent or grandparent, but it might be an elder, a mentor, a boss even, or a neighbor. We remember them because they've gone, yet still, particularly in our dark times, shined like stars in our night, encouraging and guiding us. E na mate, haere, 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 haere kitapo. To our dead, farewell, farewell, farewell to the night. This morning too, invited people to bring a picture of someone who helped and influenced them. We are honored to have a photographic symbol of those people in our midst at worship today. Secondly, Matariki is a time of change, a turning of the seasons and the coming of light. It's a time to prepare to plant without seeing the results, a time to fly a kite into the unknown, a time to dream it and then do it differently. And lastly, Matariki occurred at the end of the harvest season. It was a time of giving thanks for the whenua, earth, and Papa Tuanuku, the Earth Mother, who have sustained us. This Thanksgiving was marked by pleasurable pastimes, like games, kite making, feasting. And this morning in our worship, we have a visit from Talia, the coordinator of My Backyard Garden, a program of the Glynn Family Centre, which we support. Planting, harvesting, giving away and giving thanks are part of her kaupapa. Matariki is a time for dreaming and doing it differently. The Bible reading set for today from Mark 6 is an interesting one. See, the normative understanding of mission in Jesus' day was to stay in one place. The wise teacher, healer, read Jesus, would set up a base, like in Capernaum, for example. And his disciples would do the daily running around and crowd control. So an inquirer, if they wanted to see the great teacher, healer, she or he had to go through the disciples, maybe giving them a financial tip along the way, before the inquirer got entrance and then the advice or therapy they needed from the teacher. So the wise teacher was the dispenser of goodies, the disciples, the go-betweens, and this was all normative. It's how the world went round. It was similar to a farming metaphor. And note the gospel writers often use farming as a metaphor for mission. The resourced farmer would buy land and his sons and daughters and employees would join him in working the land and then all getting a share of the benefits as people came to buy produce. Both the mission and farming understanding was that you stayed put. People came to you, and there you amassed both influence and affluence. Well, Jesus did it different. He was on the move, itinerant. He didn't set up a theological college or a cathedral. He kept moving around, and people had direct access without going through the disciples. And when the disciples try to do that go-between bit, you might think of the children coming in Mark 10, Jesus tells them off. Don't do that, guys. Jesus didn't work from an operational base. He didn't amass wealth, and nor did his disciples. He took only with him a few possessions, what he could carry. It was a precarious existence that depended upon the generosity of others whom he met along the road. Being on the move, he was also hard to find until he turned up. This was not how one built up a strong, dependable, enduring movement. No. And it wasn't only the lack of a base that marked Jesus as different. In the text from Mark 6 today, we have Jesus telling his disciples to do what he does. Like, I, Jesus, don't have a monopoly on this stuff, guys. Teach a bit of wisdom. Tell people to turn from their selfish ways. Cast out the demons of fear. Be a source, a resource for healing. He doesn't tell his disciples to sell people tickets to come and see the great Jesus on this particular time on that particular hillside. No, his disciples are not preaching that the great Jesus is coming with flashing lights to save you. No, his disciples are doing the saving. They are preaching and living and being what Jesus called the kingdom of God. They are empowering people to get up and get on board this kingdom thing. And note the disciples too are not setting up bases of influence. They too, like Jesus, are itinerant, carrying little, dependent on those they meet, weak. This is not how one builds up a strong, dependable, enduring movement. The farming metaphor that Jesus used to describe this vision was the mustard seed. Now, the mustard seed was the oxalis of the ancient world. Once in your garden, it was devilishly difficult to get rid of. It was a big pain in the garden. And it got in your garden not by planting, but by being windblown. The scandal of that little parable is that Jesus is likening his kingdom movement to this windblown nuisance. His disciples in this metaphor would be the nuisances and nobodies, the itinerant seeds being blown by the wind. And of course, if you're expecting a mustard shrub to grow into a great tree with big branches, well, think again. It will be short and stubby. The farm that has mustard running riot will be a failure. Small, weak, with few resources. Going where the spirit wind blows, an alternate understanding of kingdom and power. Really a totally upside down understanding of kingdom and power. It's where the nuisances and nobodies are doing the healing and the saving. And the king, the wise leaders, well, they're off somewhere else. Some scholars think in this regard Jesus followed the pattern of Diogenes and his followers called cynics. There's a lot that can be said about Diogenes and his debates, particularly with Plato, are both amusing and instructive. In short, Diogenes believed that virtue was better revealed in action than in theory. Not dissimilar to how I understand theology. God is a way to be lived, not a creed to be believed. Diogenes used his simple lifestyle and behavior to criticize the social values and institutions that he saw as corrupt. He was a protester. He had a reputation for sleeping and eating wherever he chose in a highly non-traditional fashion, like ceramic jars. He declared himself a citizen of the world rather than claiming allegiance to just one place. It's a bit like how I'm cynical about the supposed virtue of nationalism. Often, in my thinking, nationalism is a guise for self-interested protectionism. Of all his stunts, Diogenes, I love the account of his meeting with Alexander the Great in Corinth, 336 BCE. Here's Arrian's account of that meeting. When also in the Isthmus, Corinth, Alexander met Diogenes lying in the sun. Standing near him with his shield-bearing guards, Alexander asked if he wanted anything. Diogenes replied he wanted nothing else except that Alexander and his attendants would stand aside out of the sun. Alexander is said to have expressed his admiration of Diogenes' conduct. You see, Diogenes did not seek power and wealth. And Alexander, though driven by a great thirst for both, could see that Diogenes was content, though Diogenes had neither. Upside down thinking indeed. And some 300 years later, Jesus taught and lived and encouraged his disciples similarly. Dreaming it different, doing it different. I like kites. Great thing about Matariki. Kites. I like watching them soar. And kites have long been a symbol of the connection between our grounded selves, what is, and our hopes and dreams, what might be, flying in the sky. What are the hopes and dreams we have inherited from those mentors and elders who've gone before us? And where are those mentors and elders, our stars, leading us today? What do we need to do to prepare the ground for and plant in this dreaming time? Prepare and plant without seeing any immediate results. Jesus and Diogenes in their day did it different. We don't have to emulate what they did. But we do need to think of how, given our values, our kaupapa, we might do it differently today. Kia ora. Have a blessed week.